Hello, and welcome to another episode of PPC Town Hall. My name is Fred Vallaeys. I'm your host. I'm also CEO and co founder at Optimizer, a PPC management software. Now, for today's episode, we're going to go in a slightly different direction. Usually, you get to hear from Fred, the AI fanboy, and all of the other AI fans. But today, we have Julie Bacchini Friedman. She is the host of PPC Chat, and that is a community where more often than not, there are some people talking about fears around AI anxiety, worried about using AI the wrong way, and worrying about what it will do to their careers in PPC. So I think this is going to be an interesting one. We're going to get a different perspective on artificial intelligence in the world of digital marketing. And with that, let's get rolling with this episode of PPC Town Hall. Julie, great to have you on again. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about PPC whenever I'm asked, really.
Yeah, you do it all the time, several times a week.
True.
You've been on the show before, but for people who haven't had the chance to meet you, tell them a bit about yourself, PPC Chat, Neptune Moon, and what you've been up to lately.
Sure. I'm Julie Friedman Bacchini. I am the president of Neptune Moon. So I do PPC consulting, and I have been working in PPC since literally the beginning. So I have seen such a huge just amount of change over all these years. So I've been in business for myself coming up on 26 years. So I have really seen just about everything. And in addition to that, I have been running the PPC Chat community for PPC professionals since 2017, which I can't believe it's coming. It's
Wow,
been that many years. Like it feels like I
almost
took
10,
it
yeah.
over not that long ago, but yeah, it's been that long. And we're a free community where PPC professionals can talk with each other, ask questions, get moral support. We do a weekly live chat Tuesdays at 12 o'clock Eastern, where we talk about a timely PPC topic. And AI, of course, has been, if not the topic, it floats in, I think, to a lot of topics that we talk about too, because it's very much on everybody's mind.
Yeah, that makes sense. AI is
Yep.
everywhere these days.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, thanks for hosting that community and taking it over back in 2017. And you're also known as PPC mom to some, one of the nicest people in the PPC industry. Someone, like you said, it's about mental wellness. It's about sort of like airing what's on our minds and not just about PPC strategies, but also living good lives. And you're also an actual mom, right? And is that
Yes.
part of the reason why your glasses match your background and the shirt?
Yes, I have to be very, I mean, not that I don't like to be coordinated, but I do have a teenage daughter who's very into fashion. So if I am like askew or a miss in appearances and she catches wind of it, I will hear about it. So yes, she keeps me
Well,
on my toes.
for everyone who's just listening to the audio portion of this, I highly recommend you take a look at the YouTube version of this, or just go to the show page to see how great Julie looks with the glasses that match the galaxy in the background.
Well, I am Neptune Moon.
Ah, yes, of course. Do you have one of the Neptune swatch, the moon swatch?
I do not. I
You do
do
not.
not.
Okay. Maybe a gift idea. Let's see
Maybe.
who sends Julie one of the Neptune watches. Okay, but let's jump into the topic at hand here. So, artificial intelligence. And first of all, it's interesting because you said even if you don't have a PPC chat about that topic, it sort of floats in. So, maybe before we go too deep on AI, what are the topics on people's minds these days when it comes to Google Ads and PPC?
I mean, I'd say they fall into a couple different categories. AI is definitely a big one. And when it comes to AI, it's sort of like how to utilize it. Where does it make sense? Where doesn't it make sense? How do we make sure that we still have a job, 5 years from now? There's a lot of concern about that. What's everything going to look like? The pace of change. This has always been an industry. It's tech, right? So nothing stands still. It's always been an industry where there's been a ton of change happening, but that pace has really picked up, I think, in the last couple of years. So we talk a lot about things changing. You have things working in your account, and then one day you wake up 2 months later and it's not working anymore. So there are a lot of conversations around, hey, is anybody else seeing this? We had X, Y, and Z and it was going along perfectly and now it's not. We have a lot of conversations about those types of things, how to set things up now, how to manage things. Um, We talk a lot about what goes on in different platforms and how can you have efficiency across multiple platforms, because many people are managing accounts on just more than just one platform as well. So where to spend your time, how to figure out how to prioritize, where clients should be spending their efforts, that type of thing.
Hmm.
And it's all getting more expensive. So how do we keep clients happy when the cost of the clicks keep going up year after year? So they have to spend more money to really get the results that they're used to getting, like in the previous year. How do you manage that? How do you manage those expectations, and how do you handle that and try to keep things efficient? I would say those are some top topics we've talked about lately.
Okay, so if that's on anyone's minds, no, you're not alone in being frustrated with the ever-rising CPCs. But
Yeah.
let's go back to the thing you said right before that, maybe about the cross-platform management. And I
Hmm.
think last year there was some serious concern over the future of Google in the AI world, where ChatGPT was answering everything and Google's AI wasn't that good. But now Gemini is a leader. Gemini is actually really useful because it ties directly into all of this amazing data that Google already has about us. So
Hmm.
I don't have to do a Gmail connector. I don't have to connect it to Calendar. I don't have to connect it to Drive. It's already all in that Google universe. So what's your take on Google Ads as a platform and its viability? Should people continue to feel safe in investing there, or is it really time to maybe look at some other places too?
I mean, I think it's always wise to not have all of your eggs in one basket, because as we know, we are at the whim of any platform where we have advertising going on. But do I think that Google as a top destination for paid ads is going to go away anytime soon? I don't. They have they've spent 20 odd years teaching people how to find stuff, right? And a lot of that results in ads showing when people are finding things. And of course, they've expanded into, and they've got the newer campaign types where you have more image based and video based assets. So you've got PMAX, you've got demand gen, those types of things. So Google has been evolving, and they just came out here very recently talking about how you can connect all your stuff into Google's AI now, and you can have an even more personalized experience. So I don't think Google is um, interested in falling behind really when it
Sure.
comes to right, like they're going to I believe they're going to protect their turf, and like why wouldn't they, right? They have a very expensive turf that they spent a lot of years building. So I think it's going to take a lot for them to be pushed off the mountain. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't other places. OpenAI is serious now and are announcing and talking about, we're going to have ads. We really truly are going to start having ads. So like things are moving forward on other platforms as well. But Google has such an advantage at this juncture. It's going to take a lot to dethrone them and make them a place where it's not going to be a priority for businesses and organizations who want to be, seen.
Yeah. And I always find it quite interesting when none of these companies truly go into ads. And I'm talking about the newer ones, right? Or where they
Hmm.
make a 360. Well, 360 is actually going back to where you were going before. So they make a 180 on ads like Perplexity. But it's quite interesting because if they think about like what's the biggest monetization potential of
Hmm.
this massive AI that they're building, sometimes they don't see ads as the thing. And that's perhaps a little bit surprising to us, knowing how big and massive of an industry this is. But yeah, at some point they certainly have to. It just makes sense to support advertisers in all of this. So I can't wait to see what's to come in that. Now one type or campaign type thing that you didn't really mention was AI Max. Is that for a reason? Do you not see a lot of popularity on that one, or what are your thoughts around AI Max?
I would say generally in the community, people are experimenting with it. I mean, it's still relatively new, right? It hasn't been around for that long. So people are experimenting with AI Max. And I would say it's like any other like Google product launch. Some people start with it and it works awesome and they love it and they're like, wow, I can't believe we didn't have this before, right? And then you have other people who are like, I tried it, it was very meh. And then you have other people who are like, oh my god, it was a disaster. So it's typical, I would say. It feels a lot like when PMAX came out, right? Like same thing where some people are early adopters, some people, and like PMAX, I would say it probably performs better under some circumstances versus others, right? And so there's a pretty wide gamut, I think, in the experience that people have had when they've tested it and they've run it. So it's like everything else. Your mileage may vary. So if it feels like something that you want to try or you think could potentially work in your account, like, give it a whirl. See what happens with your particular your particular setup. And you'll know, I think, fairly quickly if it's going to be something that's going to work for you. And I'm sure it's going to evolve because like the PMAX that we have today is not the PMAX that we had when that baby rolled out, right? It's not.
Not at all.
Right. So I feel like AI Max will probably be the same way. Like they rolled it out, like here's what it is, right? And then it's gonna morph over time, I would expect. So we're
Right.
still in that first release period, really.
And that makes sense. And so that's hopeful news then for the people who are managing PPC accounts, because despite all of the automation capabilities and the AI, it still sounds like it's not a guaranteed win. Now, having been part of so many of the PPC chats, and obviously you moderate the vast majority, except the 1 or 2 weeks when you go on vacation and you have a guest host.
Yeah.
But what is sort of, are there any patterns that you've seen around AI Max and when it does work better than in other scenarios? Have you picked up on any of those?
I mean, I would say generally it's more things are harder for lead gen, and I would say that's true for Google as a whole.
Mhm.
So if you're lead gen, things like you're not the target market for Google advertising, like you're just not, and that's okay. It is what it is.
Wait.
Um,
Did I just hear you say if you're a lead gen, you're not the target audience for Google Ads?
I said it. I said what I
Okay,
said.
heard it here. Well, that's amazing. I mean, so go a little bit deeper on that.
I mean, okay. As a lead gen PPCer, I will say that most of what Google comes out with is ecom first, right? It doesn't mean that you can't use it for lead gen. You can, we do, right? But the most of what they come out with is like it's led by it's led by ecom. It's designed for ecom. It's designed for the kind of volume that ecom brings. It's just like it just is. And I've made peace with that because it's been this way forever. And every year at GML, I get my hopes up. I have a square on my bingo card every year of like, we're going to get serious about lead gen, right? And every year that does not get crossed off. And like, it is what it is, right? Um, so I think that again, when you look at like how I would say the same is still true for PMAX, like the people who find the most success with PMAX are probably ecom versus, I'm not saying that people aren't finding creative ways to have it be successful in lead gen. There are plenty of people who are doing that, but it requires a higher level of creativity to
Yeah.
make some of these things work. They're just designed for the cadence and the rhythm and the way that ecom works, which is different from how lead gen works, right? It is.
And do you
They're
think,
two
Julie,
different
that it's
animals.
do you think it's about the richness of the signal, where lead gen tends to just be lower volume in general or longer sales cycles? And so, is that kind of a fair um, point? Would it then be okay to say like maybe a lower volume e-commerce client is going to struggle in many of the same
Probably.
ways as lead gen?
I would say probably because I do think the biggest factors that make it more challenging, let's say, to find the type of efficiency that high volume ecom accounts can find for lead gen folks or for lower volume folks is that the internal machine learning AI, whatever you prefer to call it, the mechanism that drives all of the automation inside of the platform, it requires a certain baseline critical mass of data, right? And Google's honest about it, right?
Mhm.
But if you struggle to consistently like meet or surpass those thresholds, it is more difficult for the internal automation and AI to really find a groove and find a momentum in the same way it can when it has more to work with.
Hmm.
And if you think about it, it makes sense, right? Like the way that the automation works is the more information it has, the better it is at being able to figure stuff out and figure it out faster and do it more efficiently. So if it has, 500 or more conversions that are happening in a 30-day period, right? If it has 5,000 that are happening, that's so many more data points for it to look at, to find patterns, to find commonalities, than if you're an account where you have 30 conversions, you have 52 conversions, right? Like
Yeah.
that's just math. And it's data going into, that's being put into the mechanism that's like doing all the things that it's doing behind the scenes. So like it kind of is what it is. I'm not trying to throw shade in the way that maybe it seems like I am. I'm just being realistic about what it's like when you work
Yeah.
on accounts that aren't the primary use case, because we don't have massive amounts of data, they're flowing into the algorithm.
Well, so let's stop forcing the square peg in the round hole here, is maybe what I'm hearing. So, where's the round hole, or where's the round peg for lead gen advertisers? Where are you investing now to get those leads for Neptune Moon?
I mean, you still have to be on Google. It's harder. I mean, I think there are some options that can help you to, I don't want to say like trick the back end, but they like portfolio bidding kind of like
Well, it's
combines
steering the
things.
back end.
You kind of have to. You have to be a little bit more creative. Like you have to build things in a way where you're trying to lessen your data disadvantage. I would say would be kind of the way I would, if I had to put like a bigger topic over it, knowing that the volume of conversions impacts everything that's able to happen inside of the platform itself. You have to be a bit more creative if you're lower volume to try to get to that critical mass so that those efficiencies can start to happen, so that that pattern recognition can happen inside of the automation for you in the same way that it would for an account that has like gobs of data coming in, right? You
Yeah.
have to think about it a little bit more, maybe in how you structure things, and that type of thing.
Right. And okay, so that's the important nuance, I think,
Mhm.
when you made the initial point that I didn't pick up on is yes, Google Ads or Google Search is a place where people are looking for lead gen or what lead gen companies sell.
Mhm.
However, you're saying the Google Ads platform isn't designed first to support those advertisers. So you have to find these workarounds to make it work for you because the audience is there. It's just harder to connect
Mhm.
with the right audience than it was if you were an e-com advertiser.
And it's harder than it was 5 years ago. The automation, all of the automation, which is sort of like under the AI umbrella. Again, it's designed for the high data volume accounts. Like that's how it's built. That's what it's looking for. So we had more options of things that we could do. And we weren't our bidding and like all the things that happen in the background. Half of those things didn't happen in the background in the same way that they do now,
Right. So I
right?
think the challenge then is you're saying, okay, we could still kind of go back to the old ways of manually adding keywords, manually managing bids, but there's all this automation that's come in and kind of derails. And that was also your earlier point, right? Things might be running fine now, but then all of a sudden Google does an algorithm change
Uh-huh.
or they launch a new feature in Google Ads and that messes with that perfect workaround setup that you had. And now you have to figure out what's the new workaround to continue making it work.
Right. And I think you also have to think about like how long can you do workarounds, right? Like I think that's the other piece where like the people who are in the lead gen space talk about and think about like, all right, it's not realistic to say like, well, I'm manual bid forever.
Mhm.
Right? Like in some ways you feel like, well, that would solve all the problems that you're facing with the automated bidding needing the higher levels of data. You're like, well, just do manual bidding then, right? It's like that seems like that should be a simple solution. When you do the manual bidding, can you do that? Yes, you can do that. And you may find that you have a perfectly acceptable level of success as far as like the advertiser is concerned. That's absolutely a possibility. But what happens now is when you don't use an automated or smart bidding, automated bidding, it's been called 19 different things, but like when you're not taking advantage of one of those technologies within the platform, then you also don't get access to a lot of the goodies that come with that, right? That
Mhm.
Google's doing in the background for you. So I think, you know, you can try to hold on to like, oh, I'll just do it the old way. I feel like the days are numbered for that. I feel like you could make an argument that it's already over for that. Although there could be pockets of people who are like, I have extended text ads that are still running and doing great, right? Like there are people out there who have ETAs who are still going like gangbusters, right? Like they exist. So, but does that mean that like that's how you should think about your account now going forward? Like probably not, right? Like so I think that
Well, you'd have to
it's
invent time travel for that, right? Like the
right, but I'm
ETAs
saying
that
like obviously you
existed, they
can't do it
exist, and but you
right,
pause them,
but
you can
like
never unpause them again. So
exactly.
it's a one-way
Right, so
street.
that's not realistic, right? And that hasn't been realistic for a while. But like when we were in that transitionary period, when you know, so it you have to be able to absorb what's happening and see what you're experiencing in the accounts that you're responsible for. And then you have to try to make responsible decisions as far as what things can we try. I think it's nice having, you know, like programs like this and, you know, the PPC chat community where people can kind of bounce ideas off of each other in like a safe way too, to say like, hey, has
Mhm.
anybody had any success with X, Y, or Z? We get a lot of questions posed in the community, like not even necessarily during the chat time, but like, you know, whenever people will pose questions of, hey, you know, has anyone had success with, you know, like this scenario, or running these types of ads or running this type of campaign, or what's happened? Is anyone like, I haven't run, you know, I've never run the demand gen. What do I need to know if I'm going to do that? Right. So we have a lot of conversations that go on like that, where people are trying to adapt and they are trying to take advantage of the technology that exists, even if it can feel like, you know, maybe it's a little bit challenging, it's a little bit scary, it's a little bit like, oh, I don't really know what I'm supposed to do with this, you know, in this account. But I think people have a hunger to want to try. Nobody wants to get left behind. Nobody wants to feel like they wake up one day and suddenly they're, you know, a dinosaur who doesn't speak the language of anything that's going on. Like nobody wants that.
And what's that language of the what's the language
The
of the
language of the
future? And
dinosaurs.
obviously, we're talking about AI here,
Yeah.
but what are sort of the it almost leads into the question of what should people learn today to remain relevant in the future?
Okay, so I'm not the hugest fan of AI. I've been vocal about that. Like that shouldn't be a surprise to anybody who's followed me anywhere. Because I have questions about it and I think it has shortcomings. But I also realize that like that train has left the station.
Mhm.
So my mindset and the mindset that I try to encourage people to have is that, you know, everything changes in this industry and we are affected by changes that are outside of our industry. So like we have certain things that are happening in AI that are directly in the day-to-day stuff of what we do, right? Like Google has their assistant inside of Google Ads now, right? Where like theoretically, you can just have a little conversation with the assistant, you know, and kind of tell it what you're looking to do and it's going to like spoon feed you everything that you need to do. Like that's new. Right?
Mhm.
Like that didn't exist before. You can ask it questions like you would ask a person. We didn't have that before. Like, hey, why are my CPCs up? Why are my conversions down? You can ask it now, right? You couldn't do that 2 years ago. You had to figure it out. I mean, and I'm not suggesting that you only ask the Google Assistant why something's happening, because you should probably verify what the Google Assistant is telling you. um, but like that tech didn't exist before. So how do we manage all that? How do we take the knowledge that we have for however long we've been working in PPC, whether you've been doing it for a year, whether you've been doing it for 5 years, 10 years, 20 plus years? How do you take the knowledge that you have of how all these things work and sort of what is needed to create successful campaigns? And then how do you integrate that with the AI that seems to be everywhere? Like figuring out which pieces are actually helpful. Like, oh, this is like a super time saver. I could automate this, or this, right? I can have a script that does this. I can create a little bot that does something for me that saves me time. I don't have to do it manually anymore. I can just skip to the part where it really requires my brain. Like these are all the things that I think people are really chewing on right now, trying to
Mhm.
figure out like where can they use AI in a reliable way so that they're not potentially having AI generate something that turns out to be incorrect, and then you're moving forward using incorrect data. That's a real fear. But where does it fit in? Like, where does it make sense? How can it make you be more efficient? Where can it fill in gaps that maybe, you had previously that it actually does a nice job with? And people are experimenting like crazy, and
Yeah.
they share their thoughts of like, oh, I created this, or oh, these are the prompts I use for that, or whatever. So there's a lot of like testing and experimentation going on right now in general.
Yeah, and I'd love to hear some of your favorite examples of what you've seen people do. But before that, I think it also kind of breaks down into there's automation that comes out of AI where it builds
Mhm.
scripts or it just does the thing you want it to do. And then there's the AI as the thinking partner, the ideation platform, maybe pushing you to, you know, thoughts that you hadn't had in the past, right? If you're going to be writing some ads, have you put yourselves in the shoes of every different persona that might be consuming those ads, right? And then that was really difficult because I can't put myself in the shoes of an 18-year-old Black woman. We don't have a lot of common experiences, so it's difficult
Mhm.
for me to write ads towards that audience. But AI has absorbed so much information that it is, in some cases, able to do that. And so, how do you see that breaking down in terms of the ways that people use it? Do they like it as a thinking partner? Do they like it as an automation partner, or is it one or the other?
It's kind of split, I think. Like some people love it and are using it for like everything, right? They're using it for strategy, they're using it for ad copy, they're using it to generate images. Like you have people who are in the like, what else can I have it do
Mhm.
camp, right? And then you have other people who are like, I don't want it to do anything because I don't trust it at all. Like those are the two like far ends of the spectrum. And I would say you have a lot of people who are sort of in between who want to figure out ways that it can help, but also not open themselves up to risk if the AI is wrong. So I think um
And
finding
talk
ways
about
like one of the, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, talk a little bit about risk because I know you have a great example from your own business
Yeah.
on ways in which risk plays out that I hadn't necessarily thought about, but where it goes pretty deep into talking to your insurance company, right?
Yeah, so I'm a big person who I talk a lot about like what I call the business of PPC. So like obviously we have all the stuff we do where we take care of the brands that we work on and in the accounts and all of that. But I also spend a lot of time thinking about like as you're a practitioner, whether you're an agency, whether you're a consultant, whether you're a freelancer, we're providing service to our clients. Um, and it is smart to carry various types of business insurance. So if you're not, I would think about doing that. But even if you are, this technology moves faster. It moves faster than legislation. It moves faster than your insurance policy, right? It moves fast. And so I've been having some conversations with my insurance agent, which um, they're investigating answers to these questions because they're like, well, that's a really good question. So you're asking, like, okay, for example, what if a client uses AI to dig into all of their internal data, right? And AI puts together, let's say, like a summary of this is everybody who bought what we're selling in the last year, and these are their personas, and like they put this whole massive thing together, right? And they give it to you as their PPC strategist, and they're like, hey, this came from all of our data. We want you to use this. And you're like, okay, great. And then you have this data and they're instructing you to utilize it when you are coming up with strategy, when you're making decisions, when you're prioritizing, all the stuff that we do. What happens if that data that got spit out of whatever AI that they use like is wrong? Right? Where does that liability lie? Is that solely
Hmm.
with the client because they gave you bad information? Like, I don't know. These are sort of like existential questions that I'm pondering as
Well, and
we
that's an
hurdle
interesting
into
one because
AI.
I just signed, our new business insurance documents, and honestly,
Uh-huh.
for the first time in 10 years of running this business, I think I understand what I signed because I took the PDF and I gave it to ChatGPT and I asked it, does anything look weird in here? Like, what should I be concerned about? In the past, I would have just been like, there's 150 pages of probably boilerplate stuff. So here's my signature, here's my payment. Let's move on to the next item of business, right? But I find it interesting where AI just opens up these opportunities, and even like healthcare insurance. When picking a health plan, put in what your plan has and like the medical billing codes, and now you can ask your custom GPT a question. It's like, hey, I've got this thing, and like, do you think that's going to be covered? And so it looks at my insurance. It's like, yeah, that looks like a $60 copay, but otherwise covered. And again, these are things where in the past I would have just been like, yeah, I go to the doctor and whatever bill comes out, like that, it is what it is.
Oh, see, I have a spreadsheet. I went through, I made a spreadsheet with all the options and all of the costs for the previous year, and I blended them together to figure that out. But that's me.
Did you make it, or did you have an AI
No,
help
I
you
made
with
it. No, I did it.
So is this a service you sell if anyone wants?
No, my God, no. It was migraine inducing. No.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, but that's fascinating, right? How we have to think about the AI risk at these multiple levels, and then how it comes down to insurance. And it also then goes into one of the big roles that humans play is the verification. Okay, so we get this data that's generated by AI. Can we verify that it's grounded in the reality of the business? To what degree do you think agencies need to evolve into being more of a business partner rather than just being the ones that get that doc and then do something with it, but have no insight beyond, where did that data come from? Was it correct? Was it the most exhaustive data? Should there have been more? Where do you fall on that?
I think we're going to have to do more of that kind of work because someone has to double check, right? Where we are in the evolution of AI, like somebody needs to double check. I had a conversation with another PPC pro, and we were talking about the fact of like, if you're working with a client who expresses an interest in having a lot of AI stuff, like be part of the process, are you building into your pricing and building into your time the fact that like double checking is going to have to happen, right? Like someone should responsibly double check stuff. Who is that? Is that somebody on the client's end? Is that like, we get it? Like, I feel like we're at a very interesting time where the way things have been done previously, like they would send you a spreadsheet, like, oh, we exported this from our CRM, or, oh, we're going to give you a login to the CRM and you can pull whatever data you want to pull, right? Like that's how things have been done in the past a lot, or they just send you a spreadsheet, an Excel sheet that has, customer data or like summaries of X, Y, or Z, like whatever you ask for. Now it's just as likely that what you would get from a client would be that information shoved into their AI of choice. And then that would spit back either, some type of spreadsheet or a narrative or a description or a summary of like, oh yes, our typical customer profile is, X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
How do you know that's right? I guess is my, and this is me, like I look for places where there's going to be a problem because I want to make sure there's not a problem so that when we're doing the stuff that we're doing, we don't find out later it was based on faulty information. And that can come not from AI too, to be clear. People can give you bad information just as much as AI can.
Well, and that's where your example is interesting because it's like, this is our ideal customer profile. I think some assumptions go into that, and whether it's generated by a human or an AI, we don't really know every one of our customers, right? So we're drawing some parallels, we're making some average decisions, and as we all know, averages suck because nobody is average, right? But that's a very different sort of misrepresentation in a way from, well, I got the Google Ads numbers and it had 1,000 clicks and 100 conversions, so the AI says, oh, that was a 5% conversion rate, which is incorrect because it did the math incorrectly. And it should have been a 10% conversion rate. And so when I think about that, having written scripts for so many years, like one of the things about a script is you can put in a script and you can say, okay, here's the thing you need to do. And then something comes out of it at the bottom. And you can just take that spreadsheet with data and just trust that it's correct. But what if you pulled the incorrect field? And maybe instead of pulling conversions, you pulled all conversions. And so you're basing it on something that's not in line with what the business wanted. And so the way that I've dealt with that in scripts was, as the tool goes through its logic, it spits out in the debug, okay, here's what I'm doing, and here's a sample piece of data. And then I can go in and I can say, okay, let me verify not 1,000 pieces of data, but let me like grab a few of them. And if they seem correct, then the assumption in deterministic code is that it's probably made some logically sound
Mm-hmm.
decisions that we can trust a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Um, right. And so, but then the question becomes, how do you do these types of things when it comes to an AI? And for me, the way that I see that is, ask the AI to build a piece of code for you. Ask it to build a piece of software. And so Gemini is doing more of this. Claude with their artifacts can do it. But basically, don't just answer it, but put it in a table. Maybe give me some filter so that I can say, okay, well, if you selected keywords based on minimum of 5 conversions, give me a filter in the UI where I can go and set that I want minimum of 10 conversions. And that builds the confidence through a
Mm-hmm.
UI that it is doing what I expected it to do. But I do think there is a future where that the crutch of the UI goes away because we start seeing the AIs consistently doing a good job. We can start to trust it more and more, and these crutches that are the UI go away, and eventually we can just tell it, hey, can you find me high performing search terms that we should consider adding? And it just knows what that means and it does it. And then you can question it. You can say, like, what was the math behind it? And it'll explain it, but you don't need to see everything anymore.
I think that's true. And I think one of the other things that you can do is you can ask it questions you already know the answer to.
Mhm.
So, in other words, what we're talking about here is like, how are we using AI like going forward? Like something that a client wants from you, or your stakeholders want from you a week from now, 2 weeks from now, a month from now, right? That's a different animal. If you want to get a feel for how accurate is a particular AI under certain conditions, you can ask it questions you already know the answers to
Mhm.
and see how correct it is, right? Like, I feel like that's a decent way at where we are right now to be able to develop, I guess I would call it like your confidence level in a tool that you might be wanting to use. So in other words, instead of giving it something that you're still trying to figure out yourself, and you don't have all the information, or you're working on figuring it out, why don't you ask it things you already know the answer to? And then you can see, does it come up with the correct answer? Does it, like, that's a better way in my mind to be putting yourself in a position to have a higher confidence level when you
Mhm.
are asking it a question that you don't already know the answer to. And so that is one way that you might want to spend a little bit of time, like pull some historical stuff, pull it from periods where like what the answer is on the performance. Like you already know that stuff. You've already done that work. That's another way that you can work towards validating which technologies, what kind of prompts, like what gets you where you need to go, where it's spitting out something that you feel confident enough that, like, yes, I would use this to move forward on the things that I'm supposed to do, going forward from here. So that's another way that you can work with AI, where it's like maybe it's not doing something for you in your immediate like deliverable workflow, but you're building a way for you to feel confident about using it in particular situations, because you feel like you've vetted it almost, right? Like, I
Mhm.
think that's something that doesn't get talked about a lot, but it probably should.
Yeah, that's a really good piece of advice in terms of how you should use AI to build confidence and make sure it works the right way.
Hmm.
And even though you're an AI skeptic in many ways, like what other tips do you have that people could put in their workflows to get the most out of AI when they sort of have no choice but to use it?
I mean, I think sometimes you don't have a choice. Sometimes it's dictated to you. This is what you're going to do. We've all been there. And I think you just want to document what you're doing, especially if it's something that you haven't done before. The expectation is that you're going to be integrating different types of AI at different points of what you're doing. I think you want to be fairly meticulous in your documentation of like, this is what I did, this is how I did it, because Sometimes you can ask an AI the same question twice and it'll give you different answers. So I think you want to be meticulous in documenting, and it's a pain, right? Everybody who wants to have to document everything that you're doing. Like the whole point of the benefit of using AI is to save you time to do things that, like, oh, I don't have to do that anymore, right? I have this tool that reliably will spit out what I need if I feed the right information into it. But while you're developing that, while you're being asked to use it in ways that you haven't used it before, me, um, I would document everything that I did, like keep your, like, essentially like your own change log almost, of like,
Mhm.
here's what I did. This is the prompt that I put in. This is the data that it had access to. This is the instruction that I was given. This is what the results were. Like, you want to track that because you want that historical information for yourself too, so that again, you can find your own pattern recognition, right? Like, wait a minute, I asked it to do something very similar like 3 or 4 times, and the results I got were very different. Like, two of them were super similar, and then the other two were like very, very different. But I followed the same methodology while I was doing it. Like, that would make me be like, what is going on there?
Mhm.
If you're not documenting it, you probably wouldn't necessarily know that because your focus is elsewhere. Your focus is on like, oh, I asked it to do X, Y, and Z, and it gave me this, and now I'm going to go on and do task A, B, and C, right? For me, I like to document stuff. It's just a habit I have of just like covering yourself. If there are questions that come up as to, well, why did you do this, or what happened here, or what was the sequence of things that you did? Like, I think that we're in a place where all of this is so new and it's changing so rapidly that would be my biggest piece of advice, is to just create a documentation system. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy. You can have a
Mhm.
Google sheet where you like note, this is what I was asked. This is how I, created the prompt. This is the platform that I use. This is what I fed it. And this is what it spat out. Like, just keep a record of that for yourself.
Yeah, it makes me think of the my analogies of like the human role in the PPC automated world, like the PPC doctor.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, nowadays,
Mm-hmm.
anytime you go to a doctor, they're recording, right? They got either
Mm-hmm.
a human assistant or their recording device, and everything's being transcribed.
Mm-hmm.
Why not have something like that running on your computer? And every time you get something in or out, you say, "Hey, grab a screenshot." You talk through, here's what I think about this, or here was my thought process going through it. And then at the end, you have this big transcript. And the AI actually does a good job of summarize that transcript. And in the cases where you give it very specific
Mm-hmm.
information, it doesn't hallucinate quite as often.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, you still have the recording, right? So if you go back to the summarization, it's like, nah, I
Right.
don't think that's what I said. Well, go and listen to the recording, and maybe you did say it. Like, how often have I found myself mixing up words where I'm like, no, that's not what I said. But yeah, actually, that did come out of my mouth in that way because the human brain works in funny ways.
It
Um,
does. It does.
yeah, so I like that whole idea of taking notes, copious notes, recording, documenting. But it also seems like a great opportunity there to use AI to help you. And I'm a big vibe
But
coder,
then the
so
AI's check then the AI's checking the AI. I don't you just make sure. Again, I'm a big like, don't expose yourself to risk you don't need to. Right. I feel like that's I could have that as a tattoo. I mean, it's a mantra as far as like business things go. Like, just be sure that if push comes to shove and you have to explain why you did something or where did this come from. Myself, I don't want to be like, oh no, like, oh, I did the AI. Like, that can't be
yeah,
the end of my answer for me. So, again, documenting stuff is not the sexiest work we do, but we do it for a lot of things, right? We have like spreadsheets that have all the ad copy. We have all the images. Like, we do work like this on a fairly regular basis where we're trying to keep track of like, what tests are we running this month? Like, what's coming up next? Like, if you think about it in that type of workflow, I don't think it's terribly different from a lot of stuff that we're sort of already doing when we're managing the flow and we're managing a strategy and we're managing like our testing. What are we testing? What's our priority this month? That type of thing. It's a extension of that.
yeah.
Um,
I mean,
yeah.
I'm curious. Do you use a project management tool?
Do I? No.
No.
I don't.
Okay.
But it's
I
just, but I work, I'm a consultant. Like it's just me. So like I just have to create stuff for me that makes sense for me. So that's a different situation than if you have, multiple people who are working on things. I think if you have multiple people who are working on things, you probably need something that's a little more codified as far as like, this is where we put it. This is the format we want it in, right? Like somebody should come up with a template for this is kind of how we're going to do this. So we're all going to document it in the same
right.
way. Like for me, it's just me. It has to make sense to me. I'm a bit of a different use case than someone who, is working with multiple people, or if you're in-house, you have different documentation needs than if you're, working as a consultant and that type of thing.
Yeah. I built Founder's Voice. It's a content management system for myself to figure out what to blog about or what to put on social media.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I'm really the only user of it within my company, it was very important because I struggle with the same thing that you're saying, which is okay. Sometimes we do a data study, and the analysts send me the CSV file, and then I process the CSV file, and it becomes different iterations of it. And then I go to Claude, and then I go to Gemini, and then I go to GPT, and I ask them different questions about it. And eventually, I'm just like, wait, I said this was the conclusion, but like, where did that conclusion come from again? And
Right.
like good luck finding back that one chat because I might even be like, I remember it was Claude who said it, but Claude at some point ran out of memory. So then I started a new conversation, and now I spend an
Mm-hmm.
hour digging through old conversations. And so then I was like, okay, within this tool that manages my projects in my brain, I do need a place to put in what was the AI chat that I had, right? And so it keeps it
Mm-hmm.
all in one place, makes it much more findable. And that's kind of why I'm
Yeah.
asking, like, how you go about it. And I know everybody's brain works different ways, but for me, it's helpful to have these things connected in some sort of a structured manner, even though I don't have other people necessarily looking at it.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. Everybody sort of thinks about things differently. So, I've been saying forever, there's hardly ever one right way to do anything in PPC. And I would say all of this AI stuff definitely falls into that category. Like, is there a right answer? No, there's not a right answer. There's not a wrong answer. There are a myriad answers for how you might do things, how you might utilize a tool, how you might apply it, how you want to manage your back end, how much of it you want to retain. Like there's no right or wrong way to do it. I always like to bring up the sort of the business side and like the risk management piece because there's nothing it pains me to think that people in the community could not think about that stuff because it's not necessarily top of mind, but
Mm-hmm.
have them end up in a space where they're in hot water because it just didn't occur to them that like you have to document this stuff or this might be important or somebody might ask for it or god forbid you get sued, because of something that happened or you get pulled into a suit where even if you're not the direct person, like you touch the account, like you're going to get pulled in. Like there's a lot of things that potentially can happen, and I hope they never happen to everybody who's listening here today. But I have had an experience like that, and that very early on in my career as an independent business person, and that has molded me into somebody who thinks about all this stuff like very forward in
Mm-hmm.
everything that I do. So I do try to share that with others because I'm like, well, my pain should be able to benefit other people to not have to go
Yeah.
through some of the stuff that I had to go through at one point.
Yeah, and thanks for doing that. And so we're coming to the end of the episode here, but
Yeah.
Julie, is there like one story, and you can take this either into the happy place or the not so happy place, but like, do you have one specific AI story where it either did something amazing for you or it was like a classic AI fail that illustrates why people should be cautious?
Again, I don't use AI a ton, but I did have a client provide like a massive, I mean, massive document um, with, we'll call it like guidance based on sort of like, this is like, here's our sales data, here's who bought stuff, Um, and there wasn't really any way to verify it. So like you ask, questions of like, okay, well, can I just see the raw data for, the actual things that were purchased? Oh, you have demographic data. Can I just see the raw demographic data? Right. and that wasn't possible. The only results I got was the AI. That made me uncomfortable because it's putting a lot of faith in something that I didn't have any way of verifying.
Mhm.
So, that piece for me, I would say in the last year, that's probably, and that's happened more than once. That's the space where I get really like, ooh, I'm gonna need more than that, and some clients are happy to provide more, and others are like, but I gave it to you in the AI, and then you're like, okay, I guess we're going with what the AI said.
Yeah. No, that absolutely. I think the AI handoff problem, whether it's AI handing off from one AI to another AI to continue work on this previously developed piece, is a big
Hmm.
one, but also to humans then, right? So you should be able to say, okay, what was the underlying data set? And even going back all the way into the AI chat to the beginning, like what was the PDF? What was the CSV that was attached? Let me look at that. Let me
Hmm.
verify. Certainly
Yeah.
very needed. Okay,
Yeah.
well, Julie, this has been great. So, if anyone's interested in working with you or learning more, where should they go?
You can probably the easiest way to connect with me is you can find me on LinkedIn. So Julie Friedman Bacchini, Neptune Moon. Obviously, you can find me through PPC Chat as well. So we are everywhere. We have Slack, Twitter, Discord. We have a group on LinkedIn. Like we're everywhere. As far as PPC Chat goes. So I'm highly findable. If you Google me, there's a bazillion results. So you can definitely find me if you're interested in chatting about anything.
Great. Hey, well, thanks everyone for watching. Thanks, Julie, for being on as a great guest today. Please subscribe if you want to know when the next episode comes out, and also engage with us in the comments and the questions, and we'll try our best to answer those. And with that, thank you, Julie. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you for the next one.